Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Leavenworth County Commission meeting for January 24th. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and please take a moment of silent prayer. Thank you. I'll begin this morning with the roll call, starting with Doug Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Stephen is on the phone, I believe. Looking for the mute button.
Yeah, we heard you.
Commissioner Cos.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Smith.
Here.
All present and accounted for. First up, public comment. We have one person signed up, Lewis Clamp. Please come up. State your name and address for the record.
Got up at 6 this morning and I said, I don't think I want to go. And then I said, I got to go. Because I told Jeff I'd be here. He's at city meeting and they didn't really listen to him. That was bad. But he had 3 minutes and that was good. Two things I'm here to talk about. Start your edit machine there now. This is the history of Leavenworth. They finally went out. They spent $10,000 in 1986. Beautiful history. The lady was hired, and she did all the paperwork. History. Museums. Every museum I go to out of the city of Leavenworth or out of the state is really historic. I'm talking about Florida, Chicago, everywhere you go. I hate to go to Chicago anymore. They are great museums. Springfield, Missouri. It's interesting that we don't take care of ours. We really don't. Parker is the only one that makes money. The Carroll Mansion, it's good to a degree. You got some working women there now who really care about it. We need, the county needs to, or the city. It's a business that would really bring business in, and we don't have businesses anymore. They all moved out when they opened up the shopping center out there on 4th Street, where there's nothing there now. You got two property tax issues. When I talk, you have to be able to go back and forth, up and down. One is the Bill 196. Is that a good bill? I don't know. But somebody's playing a game there. If we got $4 million from that and the city woke up and put a toll bridge back up there, don't say, oh, well, I don't think we can do that. Well, that would bring in $5 million. $5 million and $4 million, that's $9 million. Surely that would do something to cut down property tax. But why should I even give a dang about your property tax? I'm serious. I came from nothing. My bathroom was 3 Mile Creek. Now, what does that mean? It means that I came from nothing. No, it wasn't nothing. It was a great life. My God, was it great. And it's gone to something. I can pay my property tax. I don't care about the history. Grosspapa was over in Douglas County during the Civil War when the Missouri people came across and had the big battle. He was over there. We did the first school bond issue in 1902 or 1901, somewhere in there. Missouri on the toll bridge has said for 15 to 20 years they have no plans to put a 4-lane bridge road in. Now that's ridiculous. And we're putting a $250 million bull. It's not $250 million. It'll be way higher than that. So I really need to apologize for worrying about other people's property tax, museums in Kansas. I know my history. I got history books all over. So my history counts to me, and the heck with the rest of the history of Leavenworth if nobody else cares about it. You got to start caring about it. It is...
That was your timer, Lou.
Yeah, that's all right.
You got a couple more things? Or?
Life is just a bowl of cherries anyway.
Okay.
And that's Sakura in Japanese. How many of you ever been over there in China? About Russia? No, I haven't been there. But you don't know about the history.
Thank you for your comments, Louis, and for the ones last night also. No other public comment. We'll move on to administrative business. Mr. Lawfrey or Van Paris, do you have anything? Nothing? Okay, good, because I was going to, if it's okay with the board, read the two testimonies I gave, one 2 weeks ago about LAVTR and one this week about the Veterans Bill.
Absolutely.
They only take about 2 minutes. So, first one on LAVTR 2 weeks ago that I went to Topeka and testified in the Taxation Committee. Distinguished members of Kansas Senate Assessment and Taxation Committee, I'm here to ask for your help. High property taxes are the number one concern for most Kansas property owners. Looking for ways to reduce property taxes is a hard task, but that's our job now, and the local ad valorem tax relief fund, or LAVTR, should make that job easier. Shifting some of the burden from property tax to sales tax makes sense. That's probably why it has already been a law, KSA 792959, for over 40 years. When the state needed ways to cover their budget in 2003, they decided to keep the cities and counties' LAVTR money. Saying it was done because a report from the Kansas Policy Institute said the LAVTR program was not working to lower property taxes is a mistake. The report noted that even with the LAVTR funds being paid out, people's property taxes were still going up. What the report hid from you is the fact that taxes were still going up because values were skyrocketing. It was not because the LAVTR program was not working. The cities and counties had to raise mill levies to compensate for losing the LAVTR funds, on top of the values going up, so the problem was twofold. We know returning the LAVTR program will not completely fix high property taxes, but it will definitely immediately help. We have heard concerns from state legislators that some cities and counties may not use the LAVTR funds to reduce property taxes. Well, A, the law says it has to be used for that, or we don't get the funds. B, Senate Bill 13, Truth in Taxation Bill that just got passed and put in place would reinforce this. And C, Leavenworth County Commissioners also passed a resolution binding all future Board of Commissioners to use 100% of the LAVTR funds to reduce property taxes. All of our laws are based on the assumption that government closest to the people should have the most control over these matters. The state is telling the counties and cities the state knows better what the people want. I haven't talked to one person in my community that does not want the LAVTR returned. The only people telling me they don't want it returned are the state leaders. Not only should LAVTR be returned, it should be expanded, because this is exactly the direction true property tax relief needs to go. Some of the weight needs to come off of property tax and be put onto sales tax and income tax. Without some other major source of income, Kansas has no other choice. Just a 1% income tax, state income tax, would allow the county to cut everyone's property taxes in half. The state makes all the counties use property tax to almost completely fund their budgets. This system does not work for about a dozen counties. Leavenworth County is especially handicapped without LAVTR funds because we are almost 40% property tax exempt already. Only 60% of our county pays property tax, so that 60% pays more than their fair share. Returning the LAVTR would cut Leavenworth County's mill levy by almost 4 full mills. Please help every taxpayer in Kansas to lower their property taxes by using some sales tax to offset property taxes through the LAVTR program. So that's what I testified 2 weeks ago on LAVTR. Then this week I went for the Veterans Bill, Disabled Veterans Bill. Good morning, Senators. Thank you for your service and thank you for hearing me today. Also, thank you to all the veterans in the room and watching online for your service. I didn't know whether to sign up for pro bill or against the bill because Leavenworth County is all for veteran benefits. It's the funding mechanism in the bill we are against. If it was put back under the homestead program, there isn't any problem for the counties. But the way the funding was revised into its current version, it puts all its counties at risk. Also, the amended version says if the state stops paying for it, then 3 counties won't have to cover it anymore, but 102 still will. This raises the property taxes on everyone else that isn't a disabled veteran in those counties. Also, the way the program works, the other 3 counties that would still be out a year's worth of taxes. That's about $3 million for Leavenworth County. That's not including the schools or any other taxing entities. We would have to know they discontinued the program before January 1 of the year they announced they will stop paying for it. We think it also needs to have caps on income and house values. We've had disabled veterans reach out to us on this issue and told us they would qualify for this benefit, but they make over $100,000 a year or live in a $500,000 house and they don't feel they should take it. But they totally agree with us that the lower income vets should get this relief, which is another reason we feel just expanding the homestead program would work better. It already covers disabled veterans' taxes now. Just raise the limits. I'm totally upset with our federal government giving money away to foreign countries before they take care of our own veterans. But if we can do something at the local level, then we should. We just can't further negatively impact the finances of people already struggling to meet their expenses to do it. We need property tax relief for everyone, not shift taxes from one group to another, which is why I think Article 11, Section 1 of the Constitution tries to protect against discriminating one group of taxpayers from another. In closing, I just want to ask the veterans here today lobbying for this bill, why are you trying to pass a bill that says if the state stops paying for it, then you lose this benefit? Because the state has a history of discontinuing payments on programs. Ask them to put it under the expanded homestead program, and then you probably won't lose it. Thank you for your consideration.
Very well done,
Thank you, Jeff.
Jeff, very well done. We appreciate
But the
that.
bill that was presented didn't even say the state was going to fund the 3 counties.
That's
That is
exactly
correct.
right. The one that they're actually on the floor does not protect the 3 counties.
That's correct.
That's something somebody added later saying that it would, but that's actually not what's being proposed on the floor right now.
Well, the register read the bill last week because it was continued to this week, and I was there with Jeff last week, and it was read as submitted and written originally. There was no amended language to it.
So the version that they're contemplating is not protecting the 3 counties anyway.
I thought I read in the paper that representative said that was going to be part of the bill.
That was not what was read. I mean, I was sitting there,
Yep.
and I think that myself and Commissioner Culbertson and then one of the commissioners from Riley County, we were all like, whoa, that's not even
So it's not even the
amended.
version that we were told.
But Commissioner Smith, you're correct. One of our representatives did say that, and it was, I read in the paper also.
Yeah, it was
It's
stated in
amazing
the
how these
paper
things disappear or we get misled.
and in the newsletter.
Right.
So
Yeah.
just to clear it up, the version that is being addressed right now does not protect the 3 counties, Leavenworth, Geary, and Riley, from all the other taxpayers that are not disabled veterans in those counties would pick up the difference.
And also in that bill, any veteran over 65 would not pay taxes.
Correct.
And we don't even know that number.
No.
Do we have an idea what that number would be?
Yeah, we have, statistics, we have how many veterans in Leavenworth County would be over 65. But the one we don't have that you can't nail down exactly is how many veterans with disabilities are over 65. So we know how many are over 65, but we don't know how many of those also have some other rating. And then we also don't know, like, property values. We don't track.
I think it was interesting. I was talking to one of my cousins who lives in Florida, and we were discussing just some of the there were people that migrated to Florida, and she's been in Florida almost her entire life, migrated to Florida because at that time the cost of living, property, and value, everything in Florida was so cheap. It was, a lot of people came in. Right now they are leaving in droves because the property taxes have increased so much, and the insurance. Property insurance is so high that they can't afford to live there and are leaving. And I think that she said that her property tax bill this past year went up $1,800 in 1 year. So I just thought that was interesting when we're debating whether or not
Comparing,
you know
It's all relative.
it's yeah.
Okay.
But let's make sure we get them Bradford pear trees outlawed.
Yeah, the more I learn in Topeka, the less I want to know. Anybody?
Jeff?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Stephen. I just want to point out that the commission has supported all of these property tax legislation that is being offered that is going to help folks to see their property taxes go down. We're not wanting to see different groups cut out so that your property taxes go up.
Tax
And I
shifts.
think that's a really important point with some of these pieces of legislation that are exempting groups. And then the second thing is we're also supporting the constitutional amendment that would cap their property taxes. They would not be allowed to go up, the valuation tax would not go up more than the 4%, and we're asking that the House vote on that. And I'm understanding that bill is being kind of stymied by leadership. So folks need to be reaching out to their legislators on property taxes if you want to see something done.
Exactly.
Very true.
So I printed out all the exemptions that exist now in Kansas, 13 pages of exemptions on property tax. Every time they pass another exemption on another group, it raises the taxes on everyone else. I don't understand how it's not that difficult to figure out.
And if you take a lot of properties off the tax rolls, even the 4% cap is going to require us to raise the mill levy to make up the losses that we won't be, from other properties that are exempt. So, even if we went revenue neutral, you'd have to raise the mill levy to go revenue neutral if you take a whole bunch of properties off the tax rolls.
That's right.
So,
the cost of doing business is what it is. We try to maintain exactly just only what we had the year before, and we try to keep that under the cost of living increase for the budget, and that's what we've done for the last 5 years.
We may have to increase road department's budget to put up more barricades to close bridges.
We're going to have to figure that out. Anything else on administrative business?
Commissioners, last week we said, watch what's going on in Topeka. The actions are louder than the words. They don't want to reinstate the LAVTR, which would be an immediate tax relief for local citizens. Somewhere around 4 mills just for the county. Cities would add additional mills of probably 2 to 3 if you lived in the city. That's noticeable on your tax bill. But more importantly, this legislation the veterans legislation, the House Bill 2036, as presented by Representative Proctor, that will exempt veterans from paying property taxes, will increase everybody who doesn't qualify for that bill's taxes by 10%, somewhere in that range. That's noticeable as well. So not only are they not giving the money back that they're statutorily obligated to reduce property taxes, they're going to increase it on everybody else to pay for this special legislation that would allow the certain veterans to be exempt from property taxes. There's a way they can fix that, which is putting it under the Homestead Act so that the state funds it instead of local government. That's the legislation we support. The legislation we don't support is increasing taxes on everybody else so that they can give money away in Topeka.
Exactly right.
One key thing, too, also is, and all the county commissioners are correct what they've been saying, and Jeff, we appreciate you doing that. Everyone went up there. But this election year, and you folks out there decide who gets voted in office. Do your homework. See what's going to happen in the next few months or what is occurring, and then the only way you send messages to elected people, no matter where they sit, city, state, county, federal, is going to the polls, and if you don't like what they're doing, vote them out. That's the only way to get those people's attention, because I guarantee you, if we see a couple of ours that don't make it this coming year, some of the other ones will say, well, wait a minute, maybe we should listen a little more to what the local government who has to say, who's really the one representing the people, not the folks in Topeka.
Yeah. I'm hoping you can only finger point for so long before people do enough homework to figure out what's really going on. Keep yelling at the wrong people and see if it gets fixed.
Yeah.
So, are any of the school districts have an opinion on this bill? Because I think the schools would be mostly impacted.
I was very surprised that nobody showed up.
no schools, no cities, fire districts, libraries. They're all going to be impacted by this legislation. All of them.
the schools especially. I mean, with the lion's share of the taxes, you would think.
Well, the inference is that if, especially for the veterans bill, which I support veterans fully, but I think that the thing is that the people in these positions, elected positions as well, are intimidated by and feel that the inference is that if they don't support a specific piece of legislation, it means that they don't support veterans, and that's not true. It is the mechanism, as you said. We are fully support taking the Homestead Act and expanding it, and placing the burden of funding this legislation. That it is the legislators that want this legislation. Let them fund it. Let them figure out how, at their level, to get it funded.
Exactly.
Because placing it back down onto local governments, regardless of whether it's city, county, or it is going to immediately, in the next tax bill, impact our local taxpayers. Period.
I had 4 people call me the last week, retired military people I've known a long time out in Lansing and Delaware Township area, and they asked me why I did not support the bill. And after the conversation, and I explained to them, see, that's not what's getting out to the public, that we do totally support it. We just think with the surplus that the state has having, that they could handle it, whatever program they wanted to from their thing, but we totally support it. And they go, they got that much of a surplus? I go, yeah, well, why wouldn't they want to handle it out of Topeka? They said, okay, Mike, we appreciate your comments. All 4 of them said the same thing. So when you got legislators that are only putting out half the truth or misleading, then you get people that are really getting confused. It's easy to bang on the drum and get your picture taken with somebody in military and say, I support all the military and stuff like that, when we all do. But the problem is that the whole story's not getting out, so some of the military people who I've known, I'm an Army brat, I've known for a lot of years, that the other side of it's not getting to them. I'm hoping that case will continue, that they'll follow the lead and go look up to everything and get the education that they need to, because we totally support it. We've said before, my dad's 100% disabled, Agent Orange, his helicopter got shot up in Vietnam. I love the military. I was raised in it 20 years. But doggone it, folks, there's an easier way to fix this than putting a burden back on people that are working 3 jobs to try to make a living. It's just not the right thing to do. Support the vets, but have Topeka legislators stand up and do the right thing.
That's right.
Think about this: the surplus that's sitting in Topeka in the bank. Part of it is money that belongs to the taxpayers of Leavenworth County and every county across the state that they have withheld in those sales tax that could have been used and could have come back to give that relief. Yet they're holding that, and that if we're going to hold it and not give us back our local ad valorem, which I think that they should, then they darn well can fund other things that they have that are on their priority list, rather than continuing to place it down and placing the burden back on local governing bodies.
Well, they're eventually going to have to change the law.
It's ridiculous.
They're going to have to do away with a law that offers property tax relief. I don't know of anybody that wants to do that. Who would sign on to that?
Commissioners, the bill that was discussed immediately after yesterday in Topeka, the bill that was discussed immediately after House Bill 2036, does exactly what we were talking about, which is amends the Homestead Act. It increases the household income to $80,000. It would exempt Social Security income 100%, and it increases the value of a home up to $595,000, which picks up more than the majority of the state of Kansas.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So those changes were that's what they were discussing, and they didn't get that one off of the floor either, or off of the debate in the committee either.
And that's unfortunate.
That's the one that I think if it went forward, the county commission could definitely get behind, but they couldn't get that one taken care of either. So.
Yeah, when this was originally proposed, I thought it was a great idea, giving our disabled veterans another benefit. And I asked if the federal government was going to cover this, and they said no, it would have to be a different funding mechanism. And I said, well, if you put it under the state, then the homestead would be a good place to put this. But then when we found out it's going to go on to the other local taxpayers that are not disabled veterans, we can't get behind that. And, the hardest part is what you just talked about, Commissioner Smith, about people mad at us because we're not for veterans. It doesn't make any sense. We're all for veterans. My dad was in the military. My grandpa served on the Arizona. My uncle was the tank commander in the Korean War. My son's in the military. We love veterans. We think this is a great idea, but we can't get behind something that's going to ultimately raise taxes on everybody else. It doesn't make sense.
And you really think the federal government can support this with $34 trillion deficit?
Well, they could, but I don't think it's even an option.
Well, they just keep printing money anyway, Doug, so it doesn't matter.
What they give Ukraine last week. Anyway, any more administrative business?
Mike?
Mr. Chairman, one thing I noticed yesterday at the meeting was that, we unfurl the flag and we have people presenting, their view on this one particular piece of legislation, but they're not going to listen to the argument about how this is funded and what it's going to do to the local governments all across the state. And I think there was 2 points that Jeff made, or Commissioner Culberson made, that were very important to veterans. And one of them is, even if this bill is amended, if the funding goes away, then the benefit goes away. And the other thing that Commissioner Culberson pointed out was that why would you create a system where your benefit could go away? And the other thing, Senator Tyson asked some of the veterans there was, were you aware of some of the pieces of legislation that have been enacted that benefit this?
Yeah, they didn't know about it.
Through the homestead, and they were not aware of that. So I think I do think the next couple of weeks, I think we should work hard to get the information out on what actually has been done and actually is on the books right now to benefit our veterans.
And Mike, I thought about that too.
There are 10 separate pieces of legislation that the state of Kansas has enacted that specifically benefit veterans.
I thought that could be maybe our next informational pamphlet that we put in the next mailer, which would be spring. You know how we put an informational bill in there about LAVTR.
Information about what the benefits that
That's
are
coming
for
up
people
in
with
March.
Yep,
disabled
in March.
Not that far off.
Yeah, I think we need to put something in there of what disabled veterans benefits are available, because you're right, Mike. You could clearly see in that room half of those disabled veterans did not even know about some of the benefits that are already available. So we need to fix that.
Yep.
Anything else?
Newsletter is a good way to fix that, Jeff. I think you're right.
I think so. Consent agenda. I will entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second on the floor, beginning voting with Commissioner Smith.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Formal board actions. Consider motion to appoint Jessica Poinbrant to Leavenworth Area-Wide Advisory Council representing Leavenworth County Council on Aging. Did I say that last name right?
Aunt Brian.
Kinda.
Also a veteran. Commissioners, this morning we have one opening on our joint Wyandotte Leavenworth County Area-Wide Advisory Council. We had one applicant, that was Jessica Pontfriant, for the one opening that we have. So I was hoping today that we could move forward with her approval to that advisory board.
Any discussion?
I reviewed it. Looks fine. Looks good. Appreciate the people stepping forward.
Thank you, Connie.
Do you need a motion, or is that
Any
just
a motion?
Yeah.
I move that we appoint Jessica, how did you say, Bryant, to the Wyandotte Leavenworth Area Advisory Council representing Leavenworth County on Council on Aging.
Second.
Motion and a second. No further discussion. Voting with Commissioner Doug Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Stephen.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Connie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Connie.
Appreciate folks willing to step up and volunteer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Second, consider a motion that the proposed final plat, as outlined in case DEV 23-149 Novogradic Acres, be approved with conditions that the plat is compliant with county zoning and subdivision regulations as set forth in the staff report, as adopted by Planning Commission and as substantiated by the facts, testimony, and evidence presented, be accepted by this board, and that the conditions set forth in the staff report be made part of this approval. Morning, John.
Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Amy.
Before you is a two-lot subdivision over a 40-acre parcel. This parcel is located at 17208 State Avenue. It is within the urban growth boundary of the city of Basel. They were notified as part of the review process that this plat was proceeding. Their response was provided for you. They are not requiring any connection into their utilities or any such. So the plat is, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of the condition to waive connection to public sanitary sewer. Additionally, this request required an exception to be granted from lot depth to lot width for lot 2. The Planning Commission did consider that request and recommended approval of that. The rest of the information has been provided for you in the staff report, so if you have any further questions, please let us know.
I went and looked at this. It's just west of there's commercial. And then, of course, subdivision. Got the cross-country power line running through it. Don't see any issues. What they're trying to do here.
I did not either.
I just wish that we had utility connections instead of going on septic systems.
Yeah, I agree.
For the time
One
being.
of these days, it's going to.
Well, you know, when we, I know this doesn't have anything to do with this, so maybe we better get this one going. Let's talk about our next comp plan, what phase we were going to do. When I brought up that we needed to do a comp plan, redo our comp plan, it was too expensive to incorporate the sewer study and all that in there. And, you know, that may be something in the future, unless Topeka shuts us down, that we could fund a sanitary sewer study as a comp plan in addition to our comp plan.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah. I've had conversations with John. I think that's probably the next logical step.
And that's what it was. But at the time, we couldn't because, you know, it was $285,000 for the comp plan.
Yep.
We probably received a return on that investment already with the housing
Development.
But, it's going to have to be, and it's going to be costly, but
It's
one step at a
you
time.
got to have a plan.
Yeah.
So, anyways, with that being said, I move, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the final plat as outlined in case DEV 23-149 Novogradic Acres be approved with conditions that the plat is compliant with the zoning, county zoning and subdivision regulation as set forth in the staff report as adopted by the Planning Commission, as substantiated by the facts, testimony, and evidence presented, be accepted by this board, that the conditions set forth in the staff report be made of this part of this approval.
Second.
Second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Voting, Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
Reluctantly, aye.
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 Yeah.
Motion carries
I understand
5-0.
with you.
I didn't mean to get off subject, but that's
No,
been
that's a
on
good
my
point.
mind.
It's a good
That's
point,
been on my
Doug.
mind, you know, because I'm a
Thanks,
short
Amy.
guy
Thanks,
here.
John.
Thanks, guys. Morning, Tom.
Morning.
Next, consider a motion to approve a letter of support to add Miami County, Kansas, into the Regional Economic Development Administration District as a region served by the Mid-America Regional Council.
Yep. This is actually more of a regional cooperation piece than anything else, but simply a letter of support allowing Miami County to fully participate and be under the umbrella of Mid-America Regional Council in regard to being in the Economic Development District established by the Economic Development Administration. And this is one of those things where everyone thought this was done actually in 2014.
Yeah.
And in fact, Miami County has certainly been acting like it. I serve on a whole lot of committees with Janet McCrae from Miami County economic development, but in apparently some process had gone through, or they needed something from the EDA, and they said, well, you guys really aren't part of it. So it was lost in the federal paperwork shuffle, apparently, between 2014 and now. So they started the process over and simply are looking for some letters of support.
So it's
saying,
just a formality.
This is easy. I make a motion to approve a letter of support to add Miami County, Kansas, into the Regional Economic Development Administration District as a region served by the Mid-American Regional Council.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Like Tom said, I thought this was already done.
We've been going
yeah.
all along,
Yeah.
but it is what it is.
Yeah.
We'll clean it up.
Go figure.
Voting, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Stephen?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Tom. Presentations and discussion items. Quarterly reports. Economic development. Morning, Tom.
Great. Morning. Thank you.
Welcome back.
As always, for the time, I'll talk about just a few things that are in the packet that I provided you. Submitted the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant application to the Department of Energy. Actually, not that long ago. I keep getting correspondence back from them. We're really awaiting award on that. I don't think there's any reason that we will not receive that grant. And we're not talking about a ton of money in the whole scheme of things, but it will assist in offsetting some of the costs or a portion of the costs with new LED lights and energy efficiency at the Justice Center. Charging and fueling infrastructure grant, we submitted that actually last summer for a parking lot across the street that would also have a couple of EV charging stations in it. That grant is checked on it earlier this week, is still under review. So at this point, if it's under review and we submitted it last summer, there's really no telling when we will get the final word on when that is approved or not. Along the same vein, Commissioner Stephen and I attended the Mid-America Regional Council Climate Action Priorities Workshop. And that leads to the next question is, okay, the first thing that this guy started talking about are all these climate action things and EVs and charging stations, not why. And the reason for that is actually pretty simple. If it is very clear that both future federal funding and probably state funding will ultimately require us on any grant we apply for. They will ask us, what have you done in the realm of green or energy efficiency or whatnot? And it's not an option anymore. It doesn't really matter if we believe in saving the planet or global warming or any of that kind of stuff. The folks that dole out the money do.
How you play the game.
And it's absolutely something that we have to do. So we have to show some sort of an impact or some sort of an initiative on our part that we are doing something, no matter how small. So that's really what this is about. But it is absolutely crystal clear that pretty much all future funding, right after you write in the name of who you are and what you want, they're going to ask what you've done in the realm of energy efficiency to continue.
Reduce your carbon footprint.
Absolutely.
That bunny.
Well, everything the legislature's doing, shifting taxes on other people, and they won't be able to afford to buy anything or go anywhere. Will that be considered that?
We understand.
Okay.
We understand.
Money, you got to pay your taxes.
I know, Doug.
Saying.
But yeah, and just
You'll end up living in the gulag.
I see.
And while there are certainly, I believe, some good intentions, the event that in the meeting that Mr. Stephen and I attended was quite eye-opening in just how far some folks want to go. Anyway, I'll leave it at that for the moment.
Hey, can I jump in for just 1 second,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
This meeting we went to was very interesting in the fact that there is millions and millions and millions of dollars, maybe hundreds of millions, maybe billions of dollars, and that are on the table, and some of it's not being used, and we don't have to buy into the entire climate change agenda to support Leavenworth County by accessing some of this money. For instance, trails, green spaces, funding for parks. This is all can be connected to some of our development, and So that's the positive part about this. I did have a kind of we broke into these small groups. I had a kind of a interesting discussion with a couple people about maybe we should fund subsidied coal-fired power plants that are much more efficient and clean burning. And I'm not sure they bought into that.
I had nightmares.
Okay.
Back to Tom.
Okay. Also, investigating the applicability of a rural development business grant through the USDA and what that could mean to either our local businesses or local government. Also working with a couple of developers. I know in the list that I provided, this is working with a developer, but a couple in pre-planning. And pre-planning simply means kind of helping them kick around their idea and see the feasibility of their idea before they actually submit plans. For additional single-family homes and some neighborhood commercial retail offerings, really throughout the county. And we are starting to see a greater interest in home developers uninitiated calls, calling, kind of asking details about the county and locations and infrastructure and whatnot. And I think a lot of this is certainly, I think the interest is sparked by what's happening at Panasonic. But also, I'm really seeing more and more that housing developers are really looking at where they can go and still be within this metro area and expand. I know in Kansas City, Missouri, for example, in September they commenced with a process where they required all future homes that were built to be fall under the 2021 International Energy Code, which actually makes it quite a bit more expensive to build a home and a little more difficult to build a home. And I don't know that this is fact, but the numbers that the HBA are throwing out right now, and I've seen this several times this week from the HBA, is that exactly 0 housing permits have been issued since that was commissioned in September, which is a shocking number. And you contemplate the enormity of Kansas City, Missouri, both north of the river and south of the river. It's kind of hard to believe that no housing permits have been issued, but it's absolutely taken a toll on what they're doing. So the housing developers want to stay busy, and they are looking at places like Leavenworth County is where can we set up shop?
Come on down.
Where can we bank our future?
We're open.
Yeah.
Also, another thing, investigating the need for additional child care offerings in the county. And child care typically wouldn't fall historically under economic development, but now it is absolutely tied to workforce.
Yeah, it is.
The workforce is going where their kids can be taken care of, where they can have some convenience in taking their kids and taking care of their families while they work. So investigating some possibilities. In fact, I've got a meeting set up in a couple of months with one of the largest child care providers in the country. It's not necessarily a franchise, but they have many, many facilities that are run very, very well. Meeting with them, and we'll kind of see where that goes, as well as looking at some other things relative to child care within the county. Again, continue to work on planning a workshop for entrepreneurship, which will be early 2024. Ms. Kaz, John Jacobson, and I attended an event sponsored by Panasonic at the University of Kansas for Japanese business culture and Japanese business practices. It was very informative and interesting, and it may come into play in the future as Panasonic and the suppliers and whatnot develop as well. Planning the International Council of Shopping Centers retail event here a few months from now. 35,000 developers and retailers. That's always a great opportunity to get out in the community and
that's a
county
must.
in front of those folks, as I continue to hear from our residents that they want additional services in retail and different.
And those are the people too. So I've been to quite a few times. It's the reason we got Quick Trip and IHOP. It may take a few times of visiting with them because they put you in a small area to talk to them, but you stay in front of them.
Yep.
And that is what's very important. And these are the people that can make the deals. It's not the middle people. They can actually sign the contract and keep you going. So that's an excellent one to attend.
Exactly. And really about the last thing, continue to work with the Industrial Site Visioning Committee. That's the new Business Park Committee with the Port Authority and LCDC. We should collectively have a recommendation here sometime this spring. And, it really kind of dovetails into what both myself and LCDC and the Port Authority are seeing relative to project size that are floating around the market. Now, we haven't landed many of these, but the size of projects that are out there are ridiculous at this point. Now, one of the things that I do is I continue to work with small businesses as well. But as far as the traditional, those things that you see, in the paper or on the news, economic development projects looking around the market, they are absolutely to a grander scale than they've really ever been, and they are looking for large pieces of ground. And finally, the last thing is on the last couple of pages of your packet is simply the market snapshot that I provide to you each quarter, showing vacancy rates, rental rates, and things along those lines. But as we look into 2024, I do believe that this is going to be, I don't know that robust is the proper term, but I think we'll definitely see a healthy amount of activity and some opportunities for the county throughout 2024. It seems that the workforce issues that I've talked about for the past several quarters are starting to get a little bit evened out. We've still got a long way to go, but they are certainly improving. I think for a long time I said there were 10 million jobs in America and 5 million job seekers. Now that 10 million is down to about 7. So it looks like things are kind of right sizing, and folks are getting some of the labor they need. Or on the flip side of that, they may just be giving up. But anyway, it looks like 2024 will be an interesting year, not to mention an election year where people try to make things look a little bit better. So we'll see how it is. And with that, I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I was wondering, Tom, and I do want to compliment you, Tom, for everything you've done. I know you've been very busy and your office is very active. But we had visited about a comprehensive kind of economic development plan document.
Absolutely.
And where are we at on that? And then the second thing is on the 13th of February, I understand the Tonganoxie Business Association is having an event to highlight agritourism in Tonganoxie, and are you familiar with that?
The second question, I am not familiar with the agritourism item, but pulling that into your first question, the economic development plan, that's an item that I have started and scrapped a few times. Now I believe I have a firm framework to go on. It's really just a matter of putting the time in to get it knocked out. But I believe I can have a draft within, say, the next 45 days that we can take to not only the Board of County Commissioners for a work session, but also take it to our partners, the LCDC, Port Authority, Chamber of Commerce, as well as some public venues to get public input. But, and that plan will really kind of show where we're at, strategic analysis of where we are, what we need, what our residents say that they need, as well as what each of the primary communities within the county have suggested that they would like to see economic development wise. Not to mention how that work of making it come to fruition is divvied up between the agencies that do economic development within the county. So no, we're getting close, and that plan will also include to some degree a glimpse into agritourism and tourism in the county in general.
I have a couple of questions.
Commissioner Cox?
Well, first, the child care, and there is a child care shortage of, organizations to do child care. What kind of work is being done to enhance the, I don't know what the word, but the need when it comes to paying people enough that you can even have people that can start up businesses if they can't get their staff paid enough, and people cannot afford to pay enough for them. I'm making that can take place, because I think that's really important. That our children are extremely important, and with the people that are not entering the workforce, a lot of times I think it is because of the lack of child care. So both men and women are staying home
Absolutely.
with their children, but there's going to be a point in time where they are exiting their children are going to be in the school system, and so then we're going to have a large number of people re-entering the workforce. So that
Absolutely.
we're going to have that go down, because even post pandemic, a lot of people stayed home. I think a lot of people are getting tired of being at home,
Yes.
working from home, and they're going to try to re-enter into a workspace. So I think those are kind of challenges and things that we need to look at
Yep, definitely.
and consider. But what level of priority is Leavenworth County placing on in all of our planning for child care? I guess that's my final. And at what level are we going to say, and have we talked to the school systems of bringing down the ages of where they're providing educational services to children in the public school system so that we have those types of things provided, kind of like NECAP has the early childhood, and so there's some supplements that are done there, but, organizations can't necessarily afford to open up because people aren't going to take those jobs because they're being paid $10 an hour.
That's right. That's exactly right.
One thing too, Vicki, you're absolutely right. A couple of years ago, Garrison Commander reached out to me about 4 or 5 years ago. KinderCare used to be in Lansing, and they closed down all of a sudden. And the Garrison Commander reached out, and I went and had lunch with him. Exactly what Commissioner Cause is saying. A lot, they had no place to go. I mean, they've built their additional buildings like that. So, reaching out to probably the fort also on future things probably be a good idea. And I know I'm the only one that says this, but I believe there's a lot of businesses that could provide services in a house or in a building for their employees, if there's enough employees, and pay to have that done to keep people into things. Because I don't know how many times I've heard that people, they can't afford to work because they can't afford to pay that thing and pay their child care. So I think it's going to be a big thing to look at in the future.
Double-edged sword. I mean, we looked at, even the county looked at trying to provide some type of child care, and unfortunately, regulations can sometimes get in the way, too. I mean,
Okay. We got a building.
but we can't use it for child care, because you have to have two redresses, and they have to be at ground level. You can't say, well, we have a fire escape. That doesn't work. You have to have two doors that exit onto the ground, and that isn't possible there. So
We had a long talk about
anywhere we found out a lot of stuff in that review, but anywhere where there's a certain age of children, they have to have direct ground access. You can't, even having the doors doesn't qualify if they don't, the rooms that they're in have to be directly accessible from the ground. So something we've been looking at for a while, and Tom and I actually started this conversation a while back about, what is economic development, and I think the Panasonic conversation really turned it up that without daycare, because that's one of their big focuses, it's difficult for businesses. And then, I think economic development historically has done these business incubators. And what does that look like for child care providers? We don't want to get into the child care business per se, but we're trying to figure out a way that we can make it easier for those who do have an interest. And because there are a lot of regulations, what can we do to help with that? That's what Tom's working on right now.
And when they're doing those mega facilities like you're talking about, it's both child care and transit. And those are two things that have been kind of neglected over time as to what do we do and how can we address those issues in order to improve the workforce access.
Exactly.
Agreed.
Yep. Two of the biggest hurdles they were working on with the KCI new airport construction was transit and childcare.
Yep.
Definitely.
So
That's all you had, Tom?
That's it.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you very much. Next up, Public Works.
Morning, Bill.
Quarterly report. Morning, Bill.
Morning, Commissioners. We'll run through the quarterly report and take any questions you may have as quickly as possible. So we're going to start with Road and Bridge Department. Obviously, we hauled rock every fall and winter. We do haul a lot of rock, but of the different materials there that were hauled, the one that is concerning to me is the salt. We had ordered quite a bit more salt than that, more than 2.5 times that salt. Every year, depending on the supplier, we do have a hard time getting salt. We fill up our storage to the maximum capacity. We mix up all of our material so we have everything that we can store before winter starts. But by the end of last week's storm, we were down to just the mixed material and no stored salt. And they deliver about 1 load a day from our current contractor. And so when you order 1,000 tons of salt and you have contracted well more than that and you're not receiving it, it quickly becomes frustrating. They also weren't really notifying us, and they were showing up all hours of the day and over the weekend. trying to get into the facility to drop off that salt. So of these, the 400 tons of salt is really the concerning number of the numbers that we have here today. Everything else is fairly typical for the season and on par for what we have seen in the past. The calcium chloride number is up. We do have more trucks that use it, and we are currently purchasing a extra storage tank for the Tonganoxie Quarry so we can have 2 locations for folks to fill up and treat the roads. The budgets, the 2023 year-end budget reports. We did finish the year with more money remaining in the budget than we had in previous years. I know last year we went down to $132,000 in the budget remaining, and that is a very small number. You're really running the risk of running into a snowstorm at the end of the year and having financial problems. That's really too close.
Way too close.
Preferably, I'd come in with the budgets slightly lower than these current numbers, but there's a difference in the carryover of this year to the previous years based on the change from haydite material that we could haul as much as we really could handle to the trap rock that we're using for chip and seal. So some of that cost is a cost savings between the two materials, and some of that money that you see here is the fact that we're at the mercy of how much they're delivering. They have been consistently bringing in rail cars of it and delivering it, but we would have typically hauled more material in the early winter than we saw come in this year. I don't have concerns about it arriving, but it is a combination of the amount of material received to date and the cost savings that we were able to realize between the two materials. So we are happy with the material that we have received, and I think it's good to carry over some of that cash balance into our future numbers, because when you carry over the $132,000, your cash carryover balances aren't being replenished year to year for your following year's budgets. So I think the clerk's office will be happy that we had a little bit more cash left over this year. The personnel, currently, we do not have any openings. That doesn't mean the turnover is necessarily down, but currently we are fully staffed. Knock on wood, yeah. And so we have continued to have moderate turnover. I would call it moderate comparatively to where we were in 2021, but we'd still continue to see some turnover within the department in a lot of entry-level positions. We have a lot of senior staff or senior workers that have been there for years. Some of them are retiring. A few retired last quarter, but we currently are fully staffed and operational. We do have 2 open an engineering intern position that we have recently received an application for, and we have a noxious weed assistant who had been there for the previous 4 or 5 summers and was great help. But she recently graduated, and I don't think she's returning from college. So, from a projects perspective, 158th Street's still ongoing. I'm not going to list every single project as we go through it, but ones to note are some of these bridge replacements. F46 will be repaired in mid-March and upgraded to meet the current load ratings that it was designed to meet that in fact did not meet due to a design error. T34 on 219th Street and A49 just north of Jarbelo are the 2 that are going to go out to bid probably by first of next week or end of this week. Those bridges will have a replacement window of approximately May 1st to October 14th. They will be bid with a large window so that you could have separate contractors or the same contractor in order to maybe potentially help our pricing by allowing the same contractor to work from one structure to the next and not leave and pay for mobilization as much.
T34 is not that old of a bridge, is it?
T34, I'd have to look again. I think it's around 60 years old, but I could be wrong.
It's right there at Green Road? Mm-hmm. No, it's not that old.
Yeah. These were, I couldn't quote the age of that bridge here today, but These were bridge designs that were completed, initiated in 2018. We're just now getting them built. They're going to be funded with the ARPA funds. Yeah, but I don't know the age of that bridge. I thought it was approximately 50. I thought it was around the 1970 bridge, but I could be incorrect in that by a decade or so. The Tonganoxie Road HRRR Safety Improvement Project, we do have the finalized agreement with the Water District finally, and we are moving that project forward. All the right-of-way acquisition is complete. We are just waiting for the utilities to now be relocated, and we are anticipating a November letting from KDOT on that project. The second phase is under design by SMH for the HRRR grant that we received for that area to the north of Stranger Creek. The survey topography has been completed, and we are anticipating a field check set of plans potentially by the end of this week, or they told us Tuesday at the latest. So that's moving forward on schedule, which is a relief, and we will be quickly entering the acquisition phase after that once KDOT has solidified whether the design plans through the field check. We can initiate the next step of that process.
MHS has been bought out by Vintage?
MHS was purchased by Benish,
Okay.
yes. But this is SMH that was doing that work.
Right, no, I was just
Yeah.
noted
So,
that in the,
yes. MHS is now a subsidiary of Benish. The 235th Street project is still awaiting federal approval of the budget in order to receive those federal funds that we have earmarked. I will be requesting a extension of our Kansas cost share funding from KDOT next week, and then I will immediately report back to the board whether that extension was granted. At that point, we will have to make an immediate determination of if they were to deny that extension of what funding we are going to then accept, because at that point we would have to choose between the unsecured funding that is in the earmark of $2 million and the $1 million that we already have under contract with KDOT. Because we are potentially to the point where one of those funding sources, because of the failure of the federal government to approve a budget in November, we are at a risk now of those not overlapping. KDOT has said they would extend it verbally, but that obviously was a verbal affirmation, and I can't.
isn't that negatively affecting KDOT as well, the federal funds that can trickle down to the state? I mean, it seems that they would be very much willing to extend, since they might not even have some of what they need to do.
Yeah, they would not have future funded projects. I think that this money for them,
It's already been committed, right?
Yeah, and then they run into the issue of they have to spend a certain amount of money, or they don't receive the future funding that they would receive. So everybody's kind of under this weird timetable since the federal government's not approving their budget on time or in the normal cycle, that they have to spend money to receive money, and we have to wait to receive money. So I would anticipate that they have other projects that they can utilize that funding for, but it is a pass-through of federal funds that they have a certain amount of expenditures they have to.
So this last budget was extended to March 1st,
Right, that's what, right, to March.
so we won't know. And
Yeah.
they may not pass another one to fully fund everything. So we may not get that money.
Yeah. And the project's ready to bid. We anticipated bidding it in 1st of January, so
Right.
we're at a point where we can fund that project, even with sales tax funds, if we wanted to move forward, but then we would be
You'd lose the $2 million.
$2 million.
We may not be
Right.
getting it anyways.
That's unknown. I mean, even if KDOT gives us a 12-month extension and we delay the project an entire year,
That's
no
no sign
guarantee-
we're going to get it.
there's no guarantee that we'll get the $2 million if the federal government doesn't approve the
I
budget.
will guarantee you inflation's going to bump the cost up.
This is Commissioner Stevens.
Yes, sir.
Have you formally requested that extension, or what's the process for that?
No, I'm going to formally request that extension next week, or maybe on the remaining portion of this week. I was waiting. There were some deadlines of the federal government to January 19th that got extended, I guess, to March 1st, as Commissioner Smith was speaking to earlier. And so now that that has occurred, and we are sure that they're not going to approve the federal budget, we can make that request to KDOT in writing.
Thank you.
Bridge number ST26 is north of Leavenworth on 179th Street. That structure, that roadway has been requested by KDOT to be used as a detour route for the duration of the mill and overlay project on 92 Highway. It is my understanding that there was an extensively wide window provided to the contractor on that project. We obviously don't want to close both roads, or they would have to go back and use County Route 30 as they cut through between US 73 and 92 Highway. And so we do not have, we will prior to the CIP being presented to you, but currently that project is has design complete. Right-of-way acquisition needs to occur, but it could have been constructed as early as late this year, but we may delay that project in order to try to work with KDOT on their project. But it's my understanding their project had an 18-month construction window in order to help the pricing. HP 36, we anticipate bidding that project in 60 days. That'll be a major impact with a closure of that roadway on 187th Street, there by Stranger Road, south of the co-op, or excuse me, north of the co-op. And so we anticipate that project taking probably 6 or 7 months to complete, and it will have a large impact, and we'll probably receive a lot of questions about that. K-19, it's currently under contract and is being designed. The culvert projects, half of the ones that were going to be contracted were led as a group. Cost Construction got those. They have delayed the start date back, I believe, till February 12th for the Logan Road closure. Commissioner Culberson, I just received that late yesterday. I can send that to you. I know you get a lot of phone calls about that project, but they have delayed that an additional couple weeks because of the weather. The county crews have been working on replacing the culverts that the counties were going to replace. We will bid the remaining projects as soon as we complete right-of-way acquisition. These projects, all 14 culverts, are being funded by ARPA funds. And by culvert, I mean structures up to 20 feet, because some of these are very large structures. A lot of them are just under 20 feet. The bridge inspections we're supposed to have started here mid-January, but due to weather, they haven't came out yet. But they will be coming soon, and completing those bridge inspections and starting to put those into our KDOT portal. Transportation studies complete. I was notified, I reached out last week as part of this presentation to see when they were going to announce the Ike transportation projects, and that is now supposed to be completed in mid to late February by KDOT in the governor's office. The State Streets for All federal grant has started. We had our kickoff meeting, we completed our first quarterly report, and we are just doing a lot of paperwork at this point in order to continue to get that project going. We are concentrating that grant project and that study specifically on not necessarily identifying new locations. We have a local road safety plan, we have the regional transportation plan, but we wanted to position ourselves with all of the paperwork in order to apply for federal funding for construction dollars. Fleet management continues to order vehicles. We are nearing the end of all of the county vehicles that are county owned and that are under a lease program with a warranty and a replacement schedule of 5 years or less. The current wait time on vehicles has not improved greatly. Definitely has not improved on dump trucks. but we are now entering. We're meeting with them actually later this week in order to start ordering our 2025 deliveries. So we're trying to stay 16 to 18 months out and try to get in all the orders that we need to currently get in. The GIS department continues to enter all of the data for the NG 911 database and all of the land transfers and new subdivisions that go in. And if any of the commissioners or anybody has projects that they want to see the drone flown on, feel free to reach out to myself or Soma, and she now has her FAA license, and she can properly do that under the county umbrella. And the last thing we have is the survey department, and I'm excited to announce they have finished in the last quarter their second township survey, and so we had previously completed Alexandria Township, and the last quarter they did complete Easton Township. So there, in your quarterly report, there are some packets with the breakdown of the entire township, which is a very impressive feat. Really, it's something that could have been worked on in the past 20 years, but it's something that to move forward and see that development and having it really reduces the amount of discrepancies in the county. We had back in my report, but I believe there was approximately 50 corners that needed to be set in Easton Township, and we had multiple corners that had more than one monument that had to be determined which monument was the accurate location and which one had been put in inaccurately. And so whenever a survey or a land development goes on in these two townships, they can utilize it. They have moved east and are working on Kickapoo Township. We do understand that there is less development in this western and northern portions of the county, but these were the areas that had the most discrepancies or missing corners and really had a lot of holes to fill in, and so it was important to get to those first. We felt there was corners of record when you get around Baser and Tonganoxie that had been used by 20 different subdivisions, and they are really well established. And so we were concentrating on these areas. And I anticipate it to be a struggle where the river channel has drastically changed course since the original government survey in the 1850s. And when the fort was established prior to that. And so the fort and the prison property is extremely difficult to survey up to because you can't go past it because those government corners were not surveyed inside of those facilities. And so excited to get through Kickapoo and anticipate that to be another 4 to 6 month process probably. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Yeah, on the road budget, I'd sure like to have a number before we get too far into our budget, what you actually need to do the maintenance out there. And is there anything, and this may be an Aaron question, in the future of putting in a decent car wash out there or equipment wash building?
Yeah, I know it's been talked about for years. I believe the funding was actually available at one time.
Yeah, and they took it and spent it for something else. They had like $250,000 and they took it. So, I mean, you got millions of dollars worth of equipment out there, and they don't have a way of getting all the salt and everything off that in the winter months and more. So anyway, we could do a climate action car wash, and we'd satisfy everybody that we recycle the water and the salt goes into our pond there, and we put saltwater fish.
I like it.
Well, I don't know about a climate action.
We need a decent,
I mean, Tom can look into that, but since he's kind of heading up that aspect of the American Commissioner Council, but what we were looking at, and I've been working with Aaron and Vince, is that we could get a building with the current budget of this year. If we could get a building put up that had the underground containment system that's required for the current standards of KDHE, and then the following year purchase the equipment if we were going to go, we'd either need to build racks, or we would need to build, or you can get automated ones where you just pull in like a car wash. And either one has an expense because you got to get up in the air on the racks, or you have the automated rack. But at least get the building put up with that's heated, so the guys can pull in there when it's and when they're having mechanical issues, especially or corrosion, and they can get the all the mud or salt and sand off of it and get it washed up in order to be able to even pull it into the shop and work on it in the weather we currently had. I know we at one point had, I believe, six or seven dump trucks that were having mechanical issues during the cold weather, and a lot of it was electronics and connections. A couple of them were injectors, but that would be something that would really be beneficial. And we have looked at it, and I think we're going to try to put forth a proposal and get some pricing on the building first, and then move forward with it.
Step at a time.
It needs to be right. I think it needs to be able to drive through and wash underneath.
Salt.
That's because that equipment of all the electronics and the corrosion and
Nowadays, yeah.
it's different.
Absolutely.
So anyway, that's all I'd like to see before I leave.
Bill, you had mentioned you cut your budget really close, $132,000. Can you tell me just roughly? I know it's hard to give an exact amount depending on the snow event, but roughly how much would a bad snow event cost us if we were to have one? I know more than $132,000.
Well,
How much did
duration
this
is.
last one just cost us?
Well, I don't know the exact. The last one cost us a lot of money. It rained at the beginning of that, and then the duration of it was very long with sustained winds. And so I believe we had five consecutive nights that we ran 24 hours a day, and we went through a tremendous amount of material. I could get back to you, but I mean, it would be $100,000.
Yeah. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
That's not counting now the potholes that come in the asphalt.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just wanted to point out to people that when they see, $130,000, you had extra one snow event,
You couldn't,
would wipe that out.
right? Because then you got look at all the fuel he went through.
Yeah.
With fuel, just man hours. if
Repairs.
you're running.
Right.
And that leads
Repairs.
into the second thing I was going to ask you about. So I get a lot of calls. You guys, I think, did a really good job. I got way more calls congratulating you on doing a good job than I had bad calls. But I think it's important if you could just walk us through what a typical blade operator goes through when we have a snow event like we just had. So they
12
show up
hours
at
a day.
they show up at 8:00 in the morning, right, and get in their blade, and
We
they
get
drive
way
for
earlier than 8 o'clock.
8 hours, and then they
12
go
hours.
home, right? Is that how it works? They do 750 miles of road in like 1 8-hour shift. Is that how that works, or can you walk us through that?
Yeah. So they'll come in way earlier than 8 a.m. They'll work a 12-hour shift. We'll do one pass in order to get the road passable. Generally, in most areas, we'll try to get at least one pass through, and then come back and widen out the road in the areas that have drifted and reopen the drifts. We will run a 24-hour shift on all hard paved roads with the dump trucks, and we typically run these guys that come into the graders. They will be running at least 12 hours. I know the other night we had some B-plows on, dump truck went off the shoulder got stuck in a snow embankment. It took them 4.5 hours to get it out without ensuring that it tipped over. And so it's basically a 24-hour-a-day operation through the duration of the snow event. And so even in the areas that, you could have a guy who's worked the 12 hours, we have other guys who will come in and run the graders in the areas that accidents are occurring or issues are occurring or having to go and pull out anything that has gotten stuck. And so it's basically around the clock from the point that we start a storm till the point that we have bare asphalt and roads that are clear. And then even like yesterday, you take the scare fire, the rake on the front of it, and you break up the ice on the hilltops and the shaded areas, and you try to get those opened up a little bit so there's some traction. And so until it melts, until the roads are clear, It's
Start over.
It's continuous, and those guys work their butts off out there to try to get people to and from work safely and try to get the roads opened up. Especially with
is there a temperature that the chemicals, because I know there's different chemicals than you use with the windshield, you just need to stay off the road? I mean, because it won't break it down.
If it's not sunny, I believe, and Doug sat through a lot of the class, I think it's 17 degrees is when salt quits working if there's no sun shining on it. And if you get down with some sunlight, if it's a sunny day, the asphalt will heat up better. You might be able to, it might work down to about 12 degrees, and then you can start putting in chloride.
Yeah, chloride's what we use.
Yeah, magnesium chloride, calcium chloride. You can get different chlorides and add it in there, and they'll go down to, I think, somewhere around 5 or 6 degrees, maybe. A lot of it depends on sunlight. Sunlight makes all the difference in that asphalt heating up, and traffic counts. So those areas that salt gets worked into the road and you have a higher volume roadway, you'll see a lot more melt off on those roads than you do on the road that may only have the asphalt road with only 50 cars a day versus 2,000. So there are a lot of factors. But yeah, just sitting there, I think salt is 15 to 17 degrees, and then.
Well, the Soda Road, we had a couple of people that it froze over and you can't sell it. They call it black ice. What do you want to? We had a couple trucks go in the ditch. And it's like looking at any road. It just looked a little wet. The key was that wind was whipping, and it was like a skateboard going down. And I know there's certain times, like you just explained, that honestly, people, you just need to stay off the road.
It doesn't matter at some point.
That's exactly where it gets down, where the chemicals or the sand or anything else is really. And I've noticed that when you're right, Bill, and Doug knows, when the sun comes out, even with just a little bit, it can make the big difference in the world. But we've had the last few weeks have been pretty tough.
Yeah, and I'd say the number one call that we received as far as a complaint goes is the end of folks' driveways.
Yeah.
And so when there's a snow drift and you go through a 2 or 3 foot snow drift and it's blown back over we've cleared the road once and then it drifts back shut and we clear the road again, and that edge where we've windrowed the snow gets steeper, the snow comes out and the road steeper, and we go by a driveway. We can't turn up all 6,000 driveways in the county and clear the end of the driveway. So the end of the driveways end up with that 2 or 3 foot ridge at the end of it that folks end up having to clear out themselves.
That happens everywhere.
And that's the number one phone call that we received last week. We got a lot of people thanking us. We got a few folks who were trying to get out for specific medical reasons or emergency services. But really the snow drifts at the end of driveways were the number one call. It was brutally cold, 2 or 3 degrees, and you can get down your driveway, and if you can get to the road, you can get down the road, but you've got to get through that drift at the end of your driveway, and a lot of folks were shoveling.
Well, when you're out in the county, you better have something to get out.
Yeah.
It's personal responsibility.
Yeah. I think you guys did a great job, especially with what we dealt with.
We're going to be dealing with some mud now.
Yeah, that's what that's the result of this snow. So it's going to be a while before you could actually put a dollar amount on what this last event cost.
That's what
They're going to be doing a lot of rock. They're going to be doing a lot of cold mix patching.
Patching's one I've seen,
And then also when you do have a snow event, there's an order to the way the roads get cleared too. The main roads first. So they'll pass by a dead end road before then they come back and do the secondary roads.
And that is up on our website for anybody that wants to look at it, that they can read exactly what the policy is and the priorities by the county.
Don't forget the minimum maintenance roads.
Right. So when you're on a gravel road off in the middle of nowhere, you're kind of
this just in the hourly wages, we're probably over pushing the $100,000 mark after 6 days of 24 hours a day, time and a half, and a holiday. And there was a holiday in there, and so you've got you add in all the material, and then if you start looking at the secondary effect of all the gravel that's going to need to go down in order to get these roads to where they're not muddy, you're probably pushing the $200,000, $250,000 for a long event like this.
Yeah.
We owe a lot of gratitude to the public works people, the people that are doing the snow, and the people that are doing refuse removal. I mean, they have really
And
It's not the greatest conditions to
No,
work in.
it's been tough
Exactly.
conditions for them all.
I wanted to point out too that the county used to offer 1 hour of county shop blade service to every citizen per year.
Private
But
driveways.
budget cuts cut that out. So
You
again,
could never restore that.
again, be careful what you ask for. You cut budgets, you cut services. So
I don't think you've seen services cut until after
Not
this
yet.
legislation gets over.
yep, agreed. Is that all you have, Bill?
Yeah, unless you have
Thank you,
additional
Bill.
questions.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stevens, you have anything else for Bill? Public Works? Did you find the mute button?
He's had enough of us.
You went to sleep.
Moving right along.
Okay. Other presentations and discussion items. Mr. Lothry or Van Paris have anything? You can go down the row. Commissioner Smith, do you have anything?
Saturday, I went to Fairmount Township. Kenny McGaha retired as a firefighter.
Chuck's brother?
Yep, Chuck's brother. Started in 1978.
Wow.
And
That's before you, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
That's when Jesus was a little baby.
Yeah, pretty much. So anyway, had a good ceremony, and when somebody leaves like that, they're hard to replace. It's
A lot of
the
knowledge.
experience.
Yeah.
Look at the experience
Yep.
of leaving with that man.
Yeah.
And yesterday I went to the MARC meeting, sat through the landfill study. That is,
But that was great.
well, it's being presented to the public tonight in Lee Summit. I won't be able to attend because I'm going to go to Topeka after I get out of here. And it ranged from worst case scenario, 19 years, and best case scenario, 37 years. Something's going to have to be done. And this was a study of 3 landfills, I believe, in Kansas and 4 in Missouri. So I don't know what that means. So I'd really like to go tonight, but there's just no way I can. And let's see, I'm going to go to Topeka after I get out of here, and then Thursday night I'll be at Fairmount Township board meeting. And I think that's it.
Okay.
Oh, and I wanted to recognize that yesterday they had honored Marlene Nagel at Mid-American Regional Council. She's been there 50 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And, been all through all the jobs and
Up and
held
down.
lots of positions.
Yeah.
Still working. Very, very lucky to have someone like that.
Yeah.
So, that's all I have.
Okay.
See you later, John.
Commissioner Stevens, did we get you back? Guess not. Commissioner Cos, do you have anything?
Yeah, let's see. Last week, Commissioner Smith, Tom, and I attended the LCDC annual meeting, which was a pretty good meeting. It was
Yeah.
interesting.
It was one of the
We had-
largest crowds I've ever had.
Right. They had a presentation from the American Royal and all that they do. And
Yeah.
it was a really good presentation. And then on Saturday, I went to the Methodist Church for the Martin Luther King celebration because it had been postponed from the prior Monday due to weather. And then yesterday morning, I was with Workforce Partnership. And then yesterday afternoon, the Transit Authority meeting for the strategic planning update. And here in a few minutes, I'll be leaving to go back down to the KCATA for the board meeting. And then tomorrow evening, I have the NECAP board meeting. So
Who's on
Yeah,
anyway?
well.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to do Zoom for that because I'll be in Florida. Yay! So.
Enjoy. You deserve it. I have, again, we attended the LCDC thing. Largest crowd they've had in a long time. Very good speaker. Very good speaker. Leavenworth Times asked about 4 or 5 of us in the Lansing Leavenworth area to do a video on what the papers could do and things like that. But I also managed to bring up property tax, LVTR. So I know they're putting that out. I don't know when. And then next Friday, I'll be addressing the leadership class, Lansing Leavenworth Chamber of Commerce leadership class on representing the county, and I've got a couple other county departments, elected officials going to speak on that too. And then next Friday we also have a retirement out at Council on Aging, I believe.
Yes.
Is that next Friday?
It is second.
Yeah.
Scarlett, yeah, I think.
Scarlett's about to be
I'll make
retired.
sure definitely I get out there. She's been a joy to be around. That's all I have.
Okay. So the week before, I went to the Topeka for testify on the LAVTR bill. And last week, the commission meeting that I missed is because I went to Topeka over the Veterans
Yeah,
bill
we did that.
with Commissioner Cos, and then they ran out of time, so they postponed it and took it up again yesterday. So I went back to Topeka yesterday over the Veterans bill. Went to Leavenworth City meeting last night, and they agreed to write a letter of support for LAVTR, and then also got a letter of support from our local Chamber of Commerce over LAVTR. And that's all I have.
Which is rather interesting because the state chamber voted differently or
Yeah.
supported it differently. So
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, wonder why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look at who funds that. The
Yeah.
just a update that occurred while we were in here, commissioners. I wanted to bring up. We talk about deferred maintenance a lot and the cost of deferred maintenance. I think in the past, Commissioner Culberson has said you might have to close bridges or entrances to the courthouse. While we were in here, a corner of the courthouse has fallen off.
Oh, fun.
And the southeast corner, piece from the roof that is fairly significant. So,
Whoa.
just so you're aware, over here, there's a large chunk of masonry laying on the ground that
Oh, my goodness.
fortunately did not hit anybody.
Oh, my
And it's
goodness.
unfortunate because it's
Exactly.
that's going to be an expensive repair.
Yeah, it'll be expensive. We have a company that we've worked with in the past, and we'll get them out here. But we had them go around the building a few years back and do what they could. But it's an old building and stuff happens, so just deferred maintenance.
No, that's going to be an expensive repair that wasn't budgeted for.
Yeah.
No.
You know what I say? Put plywood on it. That gets the picture.
I had to put scaffolding all around it to catch it.
Leave it
It's a
there.
pretty
Not the
good-sized
capital.
piece of the corner.
Well, we're going to
Crime
get to see
scene.
it here in a minute, huh?
Oh, my goodness. It's terrible.
Exactly.
Thank you, guys.
Well,
We'll see you in
Have
Motion-
any more than
Motion to adjourn.
a move.
motion and a second voting? I think he's
Aye.
gone.
Oh,
Oh, he's back.
He's back.
Mike, did you have anything you want to say for discussion item?
I think you said aye and hung up.
Okay.
We're adjourned.
We are adjourned.